excited to answer any questions that you may have, whether you are a student or a parent, about what you can be doing now to prepare for college as a sophomore. My name is Danica Walker, and I am one of the PATH counselors. We'll talk a little bit more about what PATH does in the community, but I'm also going to introduce you all to my other PATH colleagues. So Sandy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Sandy DiCarlo. I am also a PATH counselor. The PATH offices are located on the St. Petersburg campus of the University of South Florida. So I have a background at St. Petersburg College, and I'm currently at USF St. Pete. Charlene?
My name is Charlene Ajamang, and I am also a PATH counselor at the USF St. Petersburg campus, as well as SPC. I moved here from Ohio, where I worked in college admissions and international recruitment at the University of Cincinnati. And I am excited and passionate about helping students find their way to college and helping through that process, because there is a lot of information. So I'm excited to be here, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So in this evening's workshop, there are a few things that we're going to cover. I'm going to share my screen so you can see them. So today we're going to talk a little bit about career exploration and the role that it plays in planning for college. We're also going to go over some information about college types and fit, as well as what are colleges going to be looking for, what are some of the materials that you, if you're a student, or your child, if you're a parent, will be looking to submit as you start to apply for colleges. We are very grateful to have a guest speaker here who will be talking to you all about rigorous curriculum. And then to wrap up the evening, we're going to have another presentation that talks a little bit about what are the tips for 10th graders that you can do right now. And then just more information about the PATH program, who we are, what we do, and how we can continue to support you from now until it is time to apply and enroll into college. So I'm going to turn it right back over to Sandy.
Okay, great. And again, if you have questions that come up during the presentation, please just put them in the chat and we will address them at the end of the presentation. And also at that time, you can unmute your mic and ask any questions verbally. Our first presenter is Charlotte Finnicle. We are very excited to have her join us tonight. Charlotte has been an intern with the PATH program and is currently finishing up her bachelor's degree at St. Petersburg College. So I will hand it over to you, Charlotte.
Awesome. Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Charlotte. I'm a senior at St. Petersburg College, and I'm going to be talking to y'all today about career exploration. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Okay, so can everyone see it okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So let's talk about career exploration. So this might seem like a very big topic to talk about when you're 15 and 16. It seems like a lot, but it's a nice thing to start thinking about. So that's the big emphasis I want you all to understand. We're starting to think about careers at this point. You don't have to have your whole life planned out, but we're going to go over some ways where you can start thinking about what might or might not work for you after high school. So here's a little overview of what we're going to be talking about. We'll talk about career aptitude tests, research resources like online resources, shadowing, informational interviews, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about career development so you get a better understanding of just how careers change throughout a person's life. So let's start with career aptitude tests. These are my personal favorite for a starting point. You don't want to take one of these tests and go to the first result and be like, this will be my career, but you can look at the list and be like, okay, you know what? I can see where these jobs might be a good fit for me. I'm going to be sending all of the quizzes in a link once I'm done presenting, so you guys will have access to those. But basically, the Princeton Review is a great starting point. It's sort of like a this or that type quiz. It'll be like, would you rather repair a dishwasher or file someone's taxes? And there's a ton of questions like that. Afterwards, it'll give you a big list of everything that they recommend for you. After that, there's also something called the Holland Code. Now, this is my personal favorite career quiz because it gives you all these different letters and you get a 3-letter code that sort of fits with your career aptitude. Mine is SEA, so it's sort of like sea, like the ocean. So that's a really fun way to figure out, another way of getting a list of like the careers that might work for you. So, and we're actually going to see a way to view these results and kind of connect it to careers through our career exploration. So you've taken the tests, you've gotten your results. What do you do with those results? So there's a lot of ways you can explore new careers now that you have an idea of what you might like to do. We're going to start with ONET Online. I'll be sending a link to this as well, but ONET is basically a database with tons of different career opportunities. They're sorted by different pay grades, the amount of preparation, and they're actually sorted by personality types like the Holland Code. That's why I love this source. If you can kind of see over here, I started inputting my Holland Code, and then it gives you this huge list of all these different careers you can get. And they're sort of sorted by the amount of preparation you need. So do you need a high school diploma and no experience, or do you need like a doctoral degree? They have every job for every personality in every different type of preparation required. So that's an awesome place to start. Now, another online source I really like is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Personally, to me, these are more user-friendly, so I highly recommend that. And it also offers regional information along with things like salary information. I didn't put this on the presentation, but also career growth, because you want to make sure you're in a career that's growing, and other things as well, just like the amount of employees, tons of stuff. You can see here, this is a map of the average wage of dental hygienists across the country, so you get to see that. There's also, honestly, if you're just looking for any ideas, you can go to the homepage and you kind of see it over here, but there's a featured career, and every time you reload that homepage, you will get a different career. So that's just a fun place to start if you're just getting at a starting point, trying to figure things out. I'll send a link to that as well in the chat. But moving on for now, there's also great ways to get experience in person. So these are like in shadowing and internships. So these are both ways to see what a professional does on a day-to-day basis, but shadowing is more short-term. So basically it involves pretty much, it might last a day or as long as a week maybe. And essentially what you'll be doing is you'll just kind of sit and watch the professional while they do their day-to-day job. Personally, I shadowed a teacher in high school. I shadowed an elementary teacher and watched what he did throughout his day as a sense to kind of get an understanding of what they did, because I was considering that as a job at the time. And so that was a great way for me to kind of watch and gain experience, because I hadn't been in an elementary classroom since I was 10. But if you're interested in something a bit more long-term, interning is a good option, where you would do something similar to that, but you would be doing it on a long term, maybe for like a couple months, maybe even as long as a year, and you would do simple tasks in exchange for that. So let's say I interned instead. That would be like, I might help grade some simple assignments, help clean up books, and help with other simple tasks in exchange for gaining some experience. So those are both great places to start. And then if you're looking for something really easy, excuse me, my apologies. But yeah, so if you're looking for something really easy to start with, you can do in-person interviews. So in-person interviews, they are basically, it sounds like a very big, intimidating thing, but it's not. It can be a formal thing where, for example, with the teacher I shadowed, I invited that person. He was a friend of my dad, so I invited him, my dad, and me all to go out and get coffee, and I asked him a couple questions about his career, and then I shadowed him. But it doesn't have to be that way. For example, my aunt was a meteorologist, and when I was younger, I was really interested in that. So every holiday, I would ask her tons of questions like, how do you do this? How do you do that? That's a great way to start too. With Thanksgiving coming up, if you have a relative who has a job that seems interesting, ask them questions about it. You're not being a bother. People love to talk about what they're doing. And if they don't like talking about their job, that might give you some insight as well. But yeah, so moving on. Next, we're going to talk about career development. So this is just kind of understanding how career paths work. Because sometimes I think the biggest misconception with students is that the careers are something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. You know, you think to yourself, oh, I'm going to get this degree, which will lead to this job, which I will do for the next 50 years. And that's not how careers work. So we're going to talk about different ways careers grow. So there's career growth and development. Sometimes people need to work other jobs in order to get their desired career. So, for example, let's say you wanted to be a dentist. You might want to start, but you didn't necessarily have the money for dental school. You might want to start by being a dental assistant and then using that money to help pay for your bachelor's degree and then eventually pay for dental school. So that way you have a foundation in the field, but then you can go on and do the ideal job that you wanted. And if you already wanted to just be a dental assistant, then congrats, you've already done it. But yeah, so, and then there's also career changes. So again, sometimes people think, oh, this is going to be the rest of my life. People change careers all the time. And so if you're stressed about choosing a career, tell yourself that this will be what you'll do for your young adult years. You can always change it if you want to do something else. And I'll give you an example of both career growth and career changes. So let's look at that. So career growth, for example, let's say you wanted to be a principal someday. Well, and maybe you needed a job in that field to help get you through your bachelor's degree. You might work as a teaching assistant at an elementary school for a couple years. And then when you got your bachelor's degree, you could work as an elementary teacher. And then you could eventually get your grad degree and become a principal. So it's all about identifying where you want to go, and you don't necessarily have to find a way to get there right away. You can work at smaller jobs that lead up to those bigger jobs. So that's an awesome way to go. But also careers change. This slide is actually based off of a friend of mine. They got their bachelor's degree in psychology and they worked as a behavioral therapist. They really enjoyed the job, but the hours weren't always the best, and sometimes the pay was inconsistent because of that. They wanted a more stable career, and they realized that after they graduated, so they got a job as a front desk administrator for a college. They worked there for a couple years, and then eventually they got promoted to a business office administrator. My goodness, I can't talk today. But yeah, so they got promoted to that, and so they started out as a behavioral therapist. They realized it didn't work for them, and they paved a new path. That doesn't mean that their psychology degree was worthless. In fact, it probably helped them get more promotions as they continued. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. While it's good to think about what you may or may not want to do, it's also important just to, acknowledge sometimes those things will change, and you don't always need to put a ton of pressure on yourself. Just focus on what you like and what will meet your needs right now. All right, and if you have questions, that pretty much wraps it up for my presentation. Go ahead and write them down in the chat, and then we will have a formal question time after the next presentation, and you can ask them in person there. Again, I will send the links through the messages option. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my presentation. I hope that was helpful. Let me stop sharing my screen. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlotte. Okay, I didn't see any questions yet in the chat, so we'll move on to the next presentation. Charlene is going to talk to us about college types and college fit. Charlene?
Can you hear me all right?
Yep, can hear you fine.
Awesome. So thanks, Sandy. I will be talking a little bit more about the different college types and how to determine if one is a fit for you. And if you can, another second, let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay, let me try that one more time.
Okay, we're still seeing you, Charlene.
So,
okay, looks good.
This is going to talk a little bit about the college admissions process, as well as the different types of colleges that there are, or college types, and then how you can determine the fit. So I like to always share at the beginning that post-secondary education is education that's anything after high school. So secondary would be high school, post-secondary would be after high school. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to refer to all of the different types of post-secondary education as college. But these things also include universities, community or state colleges, as well as trade and vocational schools. So, after high school, you can do 5 things. You could go into a vocational or technical school, a community college, a university, enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces or the military, or go directly into the workforce. But like I mentioned, we're going to focus on the 3 types of colleges or educational pathways. So a vocational or technical school. These are schools or institutions that typically offer a specialized training in a specific industry or career field, and they offer certificates or associate's degrees. They can last anywhere from 3 months to 14 months, and they really prepare you for entering into the workforce to enter into, again, a specialized or particular career. These institutions or vocational and technical schools can offer programs like automotive technology, welding, cosmetology. A lot of the certificates or degrees that they offer might end in technology, but they're really hands-on and usually a faster and cheaper option than some of the other different options we'll talk about today. I like to share about Pinellas Technical College, which is a great vocational and technical school here in Pinellas County that offers a lot of different certificates and associate's degrees that will allow you to enter into the workforce. Anything from HVAC to radio technology. They have a lot of programs, but that's just one example. Community colleges are institutions or schools that usually offer 2-year degrees or 2-year associate degrees. The associate's degrees they offer are referred to as Associates of Arts or Associates of Sciences, and these two are allow you to enter the workforce. The difference that I like to share between the Associates of Arts and the Associates of Science is that an Associates of Arts will prepare you to transfer into a continuing program to get a bachelor's degree as well. And an Associates of Arts, while allows you to do the same, usually allows you to enter into the workforce. A great example of a community or state college is SPC, or St. Petersburg College, which PATH does offer a 2+2 program through. But they are, again, generally about 2 years to complete. And also, I like to share that some of them may even offer bachelor's degrees. SPC is an example, but they may offer them in a small amount or specific areas. And then a university. So typical university offers programs that are generally 4 years that lead to a bachelor's degree. They offer more variety when it comes to majors and programs and the different things you can study. They also offer more than just bachelor's degrees because you too can receive a certificate or an associate's from a university, as well as master's and doctoral degrees. So they offer a lot more degrees. And when people think about like college, they may be thinking about a traditional university setting, but just understand that they can offer different degrees, but they also offer or are generally referred to as a place where you would go get your bachelor's. Great university in St. Petersburg is USF St. Pete campus, Go Bulls. And I like to share that these three are options in Pinellas County that you can consider while you're thinking about the different types. So now that we know about a really quick rundown of the different types of educational institutions you can go to, you have to think about how to decide which one is best for you. So you think about the college fit considerations. Everybody is different. Everyone may have different factors to consider. So I'm going to just share some things that you may want to start considering. This is not a comprehensive list at all. And this is not to say that this is something that you need to, like that every factor would be pertinent to you, but it's good to get those conversations and ideas started now because this is the perfect time to start looking into them. So when looking at different colleges, you might want to consider location because it has a large impact on your experience. So you want to look at whether your school is located in a rural or urban setting. I like to share that people who may not like cities probably shouldn't go to a school that's located in an urban setting versus a rural setting. Also, in-state versus out-of-state. Florida has several universities and schools and colleges, but they may have certain schools out of state that give you more of what you're looking for. Also, it can also affect tuition and costs. So looking at whether a school is in-state versus out-of-state is important. I always like to mention weather and climate. If you are not a snow person, it might not be the best idea to go to a school in upstate New York because it gets cold. So looking at the weather and climate and knowing a little bit more about yourself, it helps you decide or can help you put more, help you consider different locations. And then distance from home. I know that some people really love being home, you have to see your cat every weekend, it might not be the best idea to, be somewhere that you won't be able to do that. So obviously take consideration how far your school is away from home if that's something that is important to you as well. Finances. I know that finances is a large factor that several people consider when they're choosing colleges, but understand that it doesn't only encompass how much the school costs or the tuition and fees. It has a couple other things that can go into it. So I like to share about cost of attendance. Cost of attendance would be how much the school costs minus any scholarships, grants, or aid that you might get, because the cost of attendance might be different for one student to another, even if they are attending the same school. The cost of living, which is important, if there are options to live on campus versus off campus and what that looks like. Also looking to see if the school that you're considering has campus job opportunities or work study, because if you need to get a job to help support yourself while you're going to school, you want to make sure that the place that you're looking at has those opportunities to do that. Also, school's funding type, whether that school is a private school, a public school, it tells you where they get their money from, and they may also affect the scholarship opportunities that they offer. So definitely when you're thinking about finances in schools, it isn't just how much it costs, but other factors that would affect your overall cost of attendance. Another great factor to consider are obviously academics, because that's what we're going to school for, right? You want to see if the schools that you're considering actually offer the majors or the programs that you're interested in. If you want to become a vet tech, a veterinarian, you want to make sure that the school that you're considering offers a program in veterinary studies or something that will allow you to enter into that career field. Also, the faculty and staff, who's teaching there, the different people that work there are important because they can also add on to that overall experience. Accreditation means that they are approved and accredited by a governing body for a specific maybe major or program. So for example, if you want to study psychology, you want to make sure that the American Psychology Association has given their approval that this school is okay to go to study psychology. And then another thing to consider would be size. And that includes enrollment, or how many students are actually enrolled to go there, as well as student to teacher ratio. So how many students there are for every one teacher. If you know that you require maybe a little bit more hands-on learning or more time with the professors, you may want to look at schools that have a low student to teacher ratio versus a high student to teacher ratio. And if you like to, be in a smaller area, you might like a place that has an enrollment size that's a little bit smaller than 50,000. But these are all factors to consider and study, to consider when you're looking at different colleges and universities. Also, a huge thing outside of academics would be the campus environment. You are not only going to college to study and go to sleep. You're going there to make friends and grow as a person, and you do a lot of that outside of the classroom. So the campus environment would be something that you would want to consider. So looking at the residence halls and the different housing options they have on campus and nearby. Also, dining halls and restaurants. Believe it or not, the freshman 15 is still a thing. And if you need to eat Chick-fil-A every day except for Sunday, you might want to make sure that the schools that you're considering have one nearby. Also, safety is another consideration you should think of. Do the schools that you're considering have a police department on campus or nearby? Do they have blue lights? Most colleges have a blue light that you can use not only to call police right away, but to ask questions. And then looking at some of the extracurricular activities that they offer. Student clubs and organizations are really cool. Do they have the things that you're interested to do there? So for example, if you know that you want to get into robotics, does the school that you're considering have a robotics club? Major events. Do they have, I know that USF recently had their homecoming, and they actually had T-Pain come and perform. So if that's something that you're really looking forward to at a college or a university, make sure that they offer those things. Looking into Greek life. If you want to be a part of a specific fraternity and sorority, making sure that the school has it there, because not all fraternities and sororities are at every college. And then sports. If you know you need to watch D1 sports, maybe consider a school that's D1. But also, these may or may not be factors that you consider, but they're really good to look into. All right, and other factors. So these are just other things that you should consider when you're looking at different colleges. Metrics and rates. Sometimes I like to call it the school's report card. How many students are accepted or their acceptance rates. Also their transfer rates. Retention rates would mean how many students stay from year to year, because those also can be important and an indication of how successful you can be there. Also look at the graduation rates. And job placement rates. How many people graduate from the school? How many people actually get jobs? Because again, this can give you an idea of how successful you'll be there. Also, look at different support systems that are available and resources that the school has. Most colleges have an accessibilities office, so if you may need extra assistance or you may need accommodations, making sure that that school has an office that will be able to accommodate those. Career services is another great support system or resource at a college, but seeing the type of career services they offer. Do they give you interview prep? Do they help with finding internships? If that's important to you, make sure that the school has it. Libraries, that's important. If you know that you need to study 24 hours, or you're a night owl like I was, and you need a 24-hour library, making sure they offer that. Research opportunities, and like I had mentioned, accessibilities. And then other factors to consider, what type of institution or population they may serve. PWI, HBCU, you might have heard of these. A PWI refers to schools that are predominantly white institutions. We have HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. They also have other population-specific universities that might cater to or serve specific groups like Indigenous Americans, as well as religious groups or specific genders, so gender-specific universities and colleges. So these are just some factors to take into consideration. Remember that, again, this is not a comprehensive list of everything you should think of and look at. And again, your situation may be different. So really start having these conversations with your family now, so that when the time comes, the decision-making process is so much easier. But now that we know how to select colleges, let's learn a little bit more about how colleges select students. So while you are going through and making your selections, you do want to tailor down and create a target college list. So you definitely want to identify on your list 1 or 2 safeties, 2 to 4 matches, and 1 to 2 reaches. And safeties are schools where your SAT or ACT score is higher than the average score of the freshman class from the previous year. So for example, if you got a 1120 on your SAT and the average freshman class came in within 1110, you might have that as a safety or a match. Also, matches are schools where you fit into that average of the freshman class of the previous year. And then reaches are schools where you might be reaching, or you may not really fit the admission requirements, but some colleges offer holistic review where they'll look at other factors. So safeties are schools that you know for sure you can get into. Matches are schools where you know you have a really good chance of getting into, and reaches are schools where you may or may not, but why not? Don't put yourself out the game. When you're applying to colleges, most colleges are going to require similar things when you're applying. They will have some type of college application form. They'll have high school transcripts, test scores, letters of recommendations, personal statements or essays, as well as maybe require some other material. With the college application forms, there may be various ones online, but if you haven't heard about it yet, several schools use the common application, which allows you to apply to several schools using one application. Naviance is another one that you can use to apply to different colleges and keep track of the ones that you're applying to. And the Coalition app, some schools may use it. It's only used by about 90 schools, but most schools use either the common application, the Coalition app, Naviance, or they may have their own individual application on their website. Don't forget that college application fees may vary by school, and you can always talk to your college counselor if you feel that you can qualify for a fee waiver. So that way you can still apply to colleges that you are considering. High school transcripts. Most colleges, all colleges are going to require your high school transcripts. And this is going to just record all the classes that you took in high school with the grades that you got in them. But you would need to make sure that you talk with your high school counselor to send your high school transcripts officially to the different colleges, and make sure that you talk to them early to make sure that they're there by the application deadline or the deadline that is required to submit your transcripts. Scores. So a lot of colleges require a test score. You can submit your ACT, SAT, AP test scores, or SAT subject test scores, or some schools may even allow you to submit PERT or placement tests. But just so you know, ACT does allow you for free score reports to be sent to colleges at no cost when you take the test. So if you are going to take an ACT soon or SAT, make sure that you know this, or if you have your target list, make sure to include those colleges on that list when you're going to apply to the, when you're going to, take the ACT or SAT, so they can be sent for free rather than when you have to go back and maybe pay a small fee to have them sent later. But you may need to have these scores sent directly from the testing agency. So the ACT would send them directly to the college that you are applying to, or the college board. So just keep in mind how they require you to submit your test scores as well. Letters of recommendations. A lot of colleges ask students to get letters of recommendations to give a holistic, or give information about you as who you are, to who you are as a person. So if a school asks for a letter of recommendation, make sure to ask people who know you. So you don't want to ask somebody who's random. Ask teachers, coaches, managers, people who really can speak to who you are as a person. And if you do ask them, make sure you ask them well ahead of time so they can actually have the time to write it, get it to the school before the deadline. And then again, some schools have personal statements or essays that you would need to submit as well as the application. So these might be a prompt to answer a question, but they tend to be broad and open-ended. You want to make sure that you give, this is an opportunity to show the college or university who you are as a person. So don't tell them something they may already know. Be creative. So for example, if you really love something that's not shown in your schoolwork or your letters of recommendation, your personal essay or statement is a great place to show or explain that. Other things that you can submit with your college applications would be resumes. Some schools may require you to have an audition or a portfolio for specific majors and programs, or they may even require that you do an interview. So with all of this in mind, understand that it is a lot of things, and they do need to be submitted by the deadline, because deadlines are how they help determine their class size. So rolling admissions is something you may hear in regards to deadlines, and that means that the admissions officers actually review students as they receive their application, and there may or may not be a deadline for applying, but a general time frame. So rolling admissions is generally more open in terms of when you can submit things, because they're constantly receiving application and there really isn't a hard deadline. Early action might be for students who are looking to get into a school and receive their decision early, and those actually fall around January or February for some colleges. You would of course need to check with the specific school, but the students are not committed to early action schools, and you still have until May 1st to accept or decline their admission. Early decision is very similar to early action in that you're going to submit your application before the regular deadline, but you receive your decision right after. And the difference between the two is that early decision is binding, meaning that if you apply to a school as early decision and you're accepted, you are expected to go there. Versus if you did early action, you may still have a chance to decide that I may not want to go here. So early action just lets you know whether or not you can get in early or let you know earlier than most that you're accepted. Early decision lets you know that you're accepted, but you're expected to go there. And then, of course, regular decision or regular application deadlines. And these usually vary between institutions as well. They can fall anywhere between early January and offer their admission decisions somewhere in late March or early April. You usually have until May 1st to also, again, decide to accept or decline their offer. But that is just a little bit about college admissions as a whole, as well as college types and fit. I know that was a lot of information as well, but I would like to now thank you for allowing me to share a little bit more about that, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Sandy.
Okay, I'm going to give everybody a minute to just take a deep breath. That was a lot of information. Some of you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot of information and I'm just a sophomore, or my student is just a sophomore. We don't expect you to absorb every single detail at this point. I think our point is that there is a lot that goes into planning for after high school graduation. The fact that you're thinking about this now at the sophomore level gives you that much time to take all these steps and do the research and really look at schools. Students that start early on their college planning journey really have a much less stressful senior year because you've thought through these things. Can you imagine making all those decisions just during your senior year while you're trying to finish high school and enjoy your senior year? So we really encourage students to just be aware of all the decisions that can be made and really start looking at it now. That way, if you decide on a school, or maybe you've got those top 3 schools Charlene was talking about, as you go into your senior year, it's really going to be so much less stressful as you apply and wait for those decisions. Charlene, we did have one question while you were speaking. Brady wanted to know, what is the difference between a public and a private university?
Sure. So a public university is referred to a school or university that receives money from the state or federal government to actually function as a school or university. So because they receive money from the state or federal government, they may have to abide by specific rules. So, for example, Florida might give money to all of the public universities, but they also might require that the students, that the schools, accept 50% of students from Florida. I'm not saying that's true, but they may be able to impose or share or require the school to do different things, as well as other rules. Private schools generally receive their money from either from private donors or from different groups. And so they're able to maybe have different restrictions to admissions, or they may be able to have a little bit more control over maybe their costs, as well as just some of the governing bodies, and also that might affect scholarship opportunities as well. I see another question that popped up. It says, do I have to go to school if I get accepted in the early action round, or can I change my mind? Yes. Early action is different than early decision. Early action means that you get your application submitted early, which means you get your decision early, but you don't have to go. Early decision means you apply early, you get your decision early, and you're expected to go. So if you have a school that accepts you for early action, you can still select to actually attend another school. However, with schools that have early decision, they expect you to go there, or you may end up having to pay an extra confirmation fee, or you may not get a refund for a different fee. So early action, you have time to make a different decision. Early decision is binding.
Good questions. I don't see any others in the chat. If anybody has questions at this point and wants to unmute, Charlene or Charlotte can answer them as well. I do want to take a moment just to address the participants that have just joined us. As I understand it, there was a mix-up with the links to tonight's event. So just so you know, we have recorded this from the beginning, and we will share the entire recording with everyone. So if you did miss the very beginning of the presentations, we will be sending you a link to the recording. Give us a couple of days because it does have to be converted into a YouTube link, but we will get it out to you. So again, Charlene covered a lot of information, but there are plenty of resources, and we're going to go into that as well to help you navigate over the next couple of years, so you can address all those situations that came up. Let's see, we are a little early for our next presenter.
I also wanted to share that while that was a lot of information on how to, things to consider and, the different types of education, there are a lot of resources to help you start researching and learning about these different schools, so you can get some of that information that we talked about to consider. And I will go ahead, if you don't mind, and share that. And let me know when you can see my screen.
While you're sharing your screen, Charlene, there is another question in the chat, and that is the Common App the same application for all colleges that I would apply to?
No, the Common Application is a application that several schools in the United States use, but not every school may be on that list. Do you know which schools you're considering, or have you thought about some places that looked cool? If I can't see the chat, but most of them do use the Common Application, but not all of them. You can find that out on the school's website, and they'll let you know exactly if they accept the Common Application or if they may require you to apply through a different way, whether that's through their website or through a coalition application or another way, because there are several different colleges in the state and also in the country, and they may have a few differences, but several schools use the Common Application.
Okay, Dania replied that yes, she has looked at some schools in response to your question, but they are her reach schools.
Okay. Well, great thing about being a sophomore is that you have a lot of time to learn a little bit more about the things they require, so you can prepare to do that. And of course, the PATH program, we like to share extra resources, not only about the different types of colleges, but maybe some tools you can utilize now to help prepare to make those reach schools match schools. But as you mentioned, you can start looking at the different schools and researching, but a great thing to do is to explore schools that you might have heard or you considered, and there are ways to do that. You can always go on a campus tour, and that is a great way to actually see the campus and envision you there. I will say that I thought I was going to go to another school until I visited the school that I went to. And I actually said, you know what? I can see myself here. I can see myself here and having fun. So actually visiting a campus allows you to envision yourself there. And if you're not able to go there in person, a lot of schools offer virtual tours, especially with COVID. It will allow you to at least see what the campus looks like, or if you have like virtual reality glasses or goggles, make it feel like you're there. Another great way to learn about a college or school is to talk to the admission representatives. It is literally their job to give you information about the school and answer questions you might have. So do not be shy to reach out to them. Several admission representatives are also the people who might be reading your application. So if they get an opportunity to interact with you, that may or may not help with your application, and letting them understand who you are as a person and how you could fit into their school. And then obviously talking to students. You are a student yourself. If another student came up and asked you, hey, how's this class? I'm pretty sure you'll tell them the truth, and students will do the same. So talk to current students as well as students who have graduated to get a true, honest, inside scoop view of the schools that you're considering. And then another great tool that I like to share with students, which may or may not be relevant because I don't know if they use them in high schools, but definitely use them in colleges, is ratemyprof.com, where students actually go and share information about their teachers, so you can see which professors are really, really, engaging, or maybe a professor is very strict and harsh in grading, where afterwards, students will go and share their reviews on the teacher and give you an idea of the different teachers and professors that are there when it comes time to enroll and also to learn about the college. And then obviously we have the internet at our fingertips. So a school's website has a lot of information on it. So just going on it and clicking around, you might find a lot of cool things about the school, or learn about something that you didn't know before. But outside of the school's website, floridashines.org has a lot of information, and I believe this one is hyperlinked. Floridashines.gov has a lot of resources for schools in Florida. The Florida Department of Education also tells you about the admission standards for all of the different schools, public schools in the state of Florida. And then the college scorecard.ed.gov is another great website that will share some information about the college and kind of give us an overview of each. But again, remember, everyone is different. And if you have not started just having conversations with your family, please do so, because when that time comes, like Sandy had mentioned, it's going to be a lot. So if you start having these conversations with your family now, you can understand what factors are important to them, and you can share what factors are important to you, so that it is as easy as possible when that time comes to really enjoy graduating from high school and starting college.
Okay, and we've added some of the links to all the sites that have been mentioned in the chat. And I do not see any other new questions. I'm going to ask one more time if anyone has questions for Charlene or for Charlotte. Give you the opportunity now, but I don't see anything popping up. And I believe Mrs. Bigu, are you all set to go?
Absolutely. Hello,
awesome.
everybody.
There she is. So I just want to introduce Mrs. Judith Bigu is our special guest tonight from Pinellas County Schools, and we've asked her to share information about those rigorous courses. Usually when we talk about college prep, whether it's a recruiter, an admissions officer, they really talk about the importance of rigorous courses. So we've asked Mrs. Bigu to share information about that. Go right ahead.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. And this is actually quite the setup that I've gotten from Charlotte and Charlene, because Charlotte talked to you about that career exploration piece, and Charlene talked to you about what it takes to get admitted to college, and I kind of fit in between that. As Charlotte recommended, getting through some of that career exploration stuff sooner rather than later will be really helpful for you, because it might help drive your course decisions throughout your high school years. What you decide is a career path that you might want to follow may lead you to some very specific elective classes that are going to support your college admissions process. So Charlene talked a little bit about college admissions, and one of the things that's really important to understand is that it is a very competitive thing, particularly in the Florida State University system. So if you're planning or thinking about staying in state, knowing that college admission matrix that she referred to is really important. So taking advantage of that DOE website and taking a look at that matrix so that you understand your SAT scores, your GPA, and those types of things that are needed to get into the universities that you're looking at will be really helpful for you. Ultimately, when we talk about the courses that you take through high school, the purpose of those courses is that you're building that high school transcript while you work on your graduation requirements. And in building that high school transcript, some of the things that you're doing to benefit yourself as it relates to college admissions is demonstrating your determination to do well and to challenge yourself, showing your potential to be successful in challenging courses. It may, based on the electives that you take or the research papers that you write or some particular strand of classes that you take, it may help you stand out in a particular degree program. So when you apply to college, you get to apply with an intended major if you choose to, and so your coursework may help you stand out in that intended major. And then, of course, if you are taking some courses in high school that count for college credit, then it can also help you reduce your college expenses. So course selection is something that you've probably experienced for high school twice now. You experienced it towards the end of 8th grade when the high school counselors came to you, or when you got that planning sheet for your 9th grade year, and you initially picked your courses for your 9th grade year. But as 9th graders, you probably didn't have a ton of choice in what you were taking. And then last year at the end of 9th grade, or in January, February time of your 9th grade year, you got to do your course selection sheets for the current classes that you're taking, which means pretty soon you're going to be picking those classes for your junior year. And what I need you to understand, and what the connection that I want you to make, is that the courses that you're taking are part of your college planning process, because the courses that you're taking will have an impact on whether or not you're going to get into some of those colleges or universities that you're considering right now. So first and foremost, you need to be thinking about the core courses that you're taking, and are you taking them at the honors level or the advanced placement level or the dual enrollment level or some other higher level course. And then you can also be thinking about those other courses that you're taking. What have you decided on for electives? What will you decide on for electives, and why? Trying to have some reason why you're picking those courses will be really beneficial, and that goes back to the career exploration pieces. If you can get a sense of what career field you're going to choose, that's going to help you choose electives that get you further along the line in terms of applying for a specific degree program down the road. When you take AP classes or advanced placement classes, or when you take ACE classes, if you go to Hollins or Clearwater or Tarpon Springs High School, or when you take IB classes, if you're going to Palm Harbor, Largo, or St. Pete High School, at the end of those classes, there's an exam that you take. And that exam will determine whether or not what you did in that class is eligible for college credit. So I've posted a link here because on this page on our website, we have a link to the Credit-by-Exam Course Equivalency. So if you go to this link and you find the Credit-by-Exam Course Equivalency, you can locate any of those classes, AP, IB, or ACE, and you can see, hey, if I score a 4 on this AP exam, what college classes does that equate to having credit for anywhere in the state of Florida in a public college or university? Outside of the public colleges and universities, it's really each college's decision as to how to take an AP, IB, or ACE exam score and translate it into college credit, and some will and some won't. But there are also tables that you can look at online to figure out at a college whether or not an AP exam will qualify for college credit at their school. When you look at that Credit-by-Exam Course Equivalency table, you need to keep in mind that the typical number of credits for a college level course is 3. The equivalency table will clarify that for you, but in general, you need to be thinking about when you take a college course, it's equivalent to 3 college credits for the most part. That is not for all classes. So that little bit of background to say you're going to be choosing your classes for junior year soon. And when you're choosing your classes for junior year, you really should be thinking about junior and senior year together. You should be thinking about, this is what I'm going to take in my junior year so that it sets me up to take these other things in my senior year. And there are several types of courses that I've talked about. You've got honors classes in the core content areas. So honors math classes, English classes, science classes, and social studies classes. And then you've got a large group of AP courses available as well. The advanced placement courses include capstone courses, which are seminar and research, and those are going to translate into elective credit at the college level if you score a 3 or higher on those exams. I'm going to talk a lot more about that capstone experience later in this presentation, because I know that those classes are probably the least understood classes just in general going into things. And then you can see by subject, I've listed the other AP classes that are available at our schools. So you've got everything from computer science principles and art history and music theory, all the way up through your high-level math, science, English, and social studies classes. You've got some world language AP classes, and then you've got some elective social studies classes as well. So the econ classes, the government class, the US history class, and the world history class will all satisfy graduation requirements, but the human geography, European history, and psychology classes would satisfy elective requirements. In addition to honors and AP courses, you also have access to dual enrollment courses at your school or at SPC. There's also limited access to dual enrollment at USF and UF. I'm not going to talk about that specifically tonight, but if you have an interest in taking dual enrollment classes at USF or with UF through virtual, you would want to meet with your school counselor as soon as possible so that you know what paperwork needs to be completed and you can get that process in motion. Most of our students opt to do SPC because it's simply more convenient and closer to home. And the entrance requirements to take dual enrollment at SPC are a little less rigorous than the requirements to take those dual enrollment classes at USF or UF. And then last but not least, there are 3 of our schools, as I mentioned, Hollins, Clearwater, and Tarpon Springs High School also have ACE courses that are available to all of their students. There we go. So every time I talk about this, probably the most popular question that I get is, Ms. Vigu, what's the difference between advanced placement courses and dual enrollment courses, and which one is better? The answer is neither one is better than the other. The universities view them quite equally. So it's important to understand how they are different so that you can make some informed decisions. But my recommendation to any student who's asking that question is that it's a really great thing to have some of each on your high school transcript. So the first and primary difference between advanced placement and dual enrollment is that advanced placement grades show up only on your high school transcript. Dual enrollment grades show up on your high school transcript and your college transcript. So at the point that you start dual enrollment classes, you're also starting to develop a college GPA. Students who are going to go into dual enrollment need to understand that, because that college GPA will be a factor in your college admissions process, just like your high school GPA will be a factor in your college admissions process. And most students don't take a large number of dual enrollment classes, so every grade really counts. The second difference between advanced placement and dual enrollment courses is that advanced placement is standardized curriculum. If I take an advanced placement English language and composition class at Largo High School, it's going to cover the same curriculum as if I took that same class in California or New Hampshire or somewhere in England. It's standardized curriculum. The content of the course is determined by the College Board. The content of the exam at the end is determined by College Board, and teachers do not have control over those pieces. With dual enrollment, it's locally defined curriculum. So a student who decides to take Composition 1 through St. Petersburg College is working through the curriculum that's defined within the state of Florida for Composition 1, which might look very different than what the freshman composition content looks like or curriculum looks like if you were to go to, say, the University of Georgia or Harvard University. So standardized curriculum for advanced placement with a standardized exam at the end that gives a standardized measure that colleges can say, regardless of who you are and where you went to school, they understand what that AP exam score means. Locally defined curriculum with teacher issued grades are things that within the state of Florida will transfer beautifully, But when you get outside of the public college and public university system in the state of Florida, it may be something that the university that you decide to go to chooses not to transfer in, and it will be their option to do that. So going back to the whole conversation from Charlene about thinking ahead to what colleges you might apply to, having that sense of what colleges you might apply to, and picking up the phone to call the admissions office to ask if dual enrollment credit will transfer into their university, or what their policy is for taking and awarding credit for AP exam scores. Those are great questions to open a conversation with a college admissions office, which gets you on their radar as expressing interest in their university. In terms of the other pieces, advanced placement has open access. Any student can take an AP class. There is no minimum GPA, there is no minimum test score required. Most of our AP classes do not have any prerequisite courses to take in advance of taking the AP class. So simply, if you're interested and you're motivated to do well, you go ahead and you sign up for that AP class and it will be in your schedule. Dual enrollment does have entrance criteria. There are minimum test scores that are required. There is a minimum grade point average that's required, and the credit requirements, the course that you take will determine whether or not there are prerequisite courses, and will determine whether or not there are testing scores that are needed in all three areas: math, reading, and writing, or just some of those areas. So it gets a little bit complex in terms of getting into a dual enrollment class, but the basics are you need to have an unweighted 3.0 or higher GPA to even be considered for dual enrollment. If that's you and you think that you would like to take some dual enrollment classes, I strongly encourage you to go have a one-on-one conversation with your school counselor, because they can help drive that conversation and figure out what classes you should or shouldn't be considering. In terms of the location of classes, advanced placement classes only count for high school credit, only land on the high school transcript, so they are only offered at the high school. Dual enrollment classes show up on both your high school transcript and your college transcript, so they're available at your high school or at the SPC campus. Each high school has a different group of dual enrollment courses that they're able to offer, because it is based on whether or not they have teachers that are credentialed by the college to teach the course. If there's no available teacher at your high school, then SPC is the place where you would need to take a class. And then last but not least, regardless of whether you choose advanced placement or dual enrollment or a combination of the two, there will be no costs involved for you as a student. Pinellas County Schools provides the instructional resources, the textbook, and any other needs that you have. And in terms of dual enrollment, Pinellas County Schools also pays for the tuition for you. So, other things to know about dual enrollment, to get into some specifics. In order to qualify for dual enrollment classes at SPC, you have to have at least 7 high school credits in the 4 core subject areas. So between your math, science, English, and social studies classes, you have to have at least 7 credits. At that point, we consider your GPA to be a valid high school GPA, and we will start to review whether or not you're eligible. And again, you would need a 3.0 unweighted GPA in order to be eligible to take dual enrollment at SPC. In addition to that, each class may have qualifying PERT scores or ACT scores or SAT scores. And so you're going to need to make sure that you have taken PERT, ACT, or SAT. And you also need to have applied to SPC and given your SPC ID number to your counselor so that they can put it in focus. That's the way our systems will talk to one another to share grades and schedules back and forth. And so it's really critical that that step is in place sooner rather than later. A couple of the considerations that I always encourage families to think about when they're talking about dual enrollment and considering that as an option for a student. One is, when you're talking about taking classes at the college, you need to think about what that college setting consists of, right? So when students are taking a class at the college, they're sitting in a classroom with a vast majority of adults, and those adults range in all kinds of ages, right? From fresh out of high school to in their 50s and looking to, shift to a new career, or taking on a class to better themselves for their current career. So be thinking about that college setting and the fact that as a 16-year-old, you're probably going to be at some point collaborating with other people in that classroom, and that needs to be something that you're prepared for and that you're comfortable with. And then the other piece that I emphasize a lot is thinking about the fact that the dual enrollment grades that you're earning develop a college GPA and a college transcript, and that college GPA can have an impact on whether or not you're eligible for financial aid down the road and whether or not you're going to be admitted to the college that you want to be admitted to. So those are factors for sure that you need to think about, because as I mentioned before, if you're going to take dual enrollment, you need to be fully committed to being successful in dual enrollment so that you don't have a negative impact on what your options are down the road. And then at the bottom of this screen, I've given you a link to the SPC site where you can learn more about dual enrollment and some of the other programs that I'm going to talk about within the dual enrollment program. And I believe that this PowerPoint will be made available to you as a PDF, and so that hyperlink should be available in that PDF when it comes to you. So the other more specific programs that I want to highlight while we're talking about dual enrollment in general tends to be a part-time thing. Kids take 2 or 3 dual enrollment classes either at their high school or at SPC or in combination, but they also take many other classes at their high school to fill their schedule. If that's not going to be the full scope of what you want to do and you would prefer to be in a full-time college program, we do offer 2 full-time college programs in Pinellas County schools. We have an early college program, and that one is one that I highlight for you all tonight because you make that application during your 10th grade year, and the application for that is open now. Students who make application prior to January 7th will be in our first round of applicants considered for the program. And then students who make application after January 7th, but by our February 10th deadline, will be considered in round 2. Students who apply to early college and get accepted to early college end up attending the early college program in grades 11 and 12. So that is full-time at an SPC campus, and it's offered at 3 different SPC campuses. It's at the Tarpon Springs campus, the Clearwater campus, and the Seminole campus. And we're limited to 65 seats for the entering 11th graders at each one of those sites. So if you're interested, it's very important for you to have that conversation early with your counselor and to get that application in process now. The information sessions for early college were held last week, and that was recorded and it is posted on that web page that I gave you the link to on the last slide. So you should be able to access that recording if you go to the web link and then navigate to the early college page. If that's not something that you're ready for now, but you think that a year from now you might be thinking about leaning in the direction of wanting to do full-time college for your senior year, then at that point you could apply during this same time frame in 11th grade to be able to attend early admission as a 12th grader. The biggest difference between early college and early admission is that because early college is a 2-year program, every student in the early college program is expected to earn an AA degree because they have the time to earn the 60 credits required for the AA. When students enter early admission, they often enter with some credit already in place because of their AP classes and the exam scores that they've received, and or some dual enrollment classes that they've already taken. And so they can often combine those credits that they're earning toward college with whatever they earn while they're in the early admission program. And many of the early admission students also earn an AA degree when they graduate as well. The qualifications for these 2 programs are essentially the same. Qualifications include that 3.0 unweighted GPA, qualifying test scores for reading, writing, and math, and those qualifying test scores can come from taking the PERT, the ACT, or the SAT. For most 10th graders, that will be the PERT because most 10th graders are not going to have an ACT or an SAT score on record by February 10th. The other things that students must do in order to qualify, they must have 1 full credit in biology, geometry, world history, and hope. And that's because those are classes that there is no dual enrollment equivalent for. So those have to be done before you go on to early college or early admission, because you won't be on a high school campus anymore to be able to take those classes. In addition, you have to have already met your assessment requirements for graduation. So those current assessment requirements are the Algebra 1 EOC proficiency score of 3 or higher, and an FSA ELA proficiency score of 3 or higher. And our current 10th graders, I believe, are the last group that are going to be taking that FSA ELA, so that will apply to you. When you make application, either this month or next month, you won't have those in place, but that's okay. You'll be admitted without those in place, because we know that at the end of the school year, we'll get those reported to us, and we'll know whether or not you've taken care of those requirements, and we can figure out what to do if you haven't. And then the last qualification is to maintain also a 2.0 college GPA. So going back to, if you're going to take dual enrollment classes, you need to be fully committed to being successful in them. A 2.0 is a C or higher, and our expectation would be that you work toward getting a C or better in every one of those college classes. Students who enter the early college or the early admission program have the same requirements each semester. They have to enroll in at least 15 college credits each semester. They also are enrolled in a seminar course, and that seminar course is a high school class taught at SPC by one of our Pinellas County Schools counselors. We have a counselor on site at each one of the campuses. And then, of course, requirements for staying in the program also include having positive attendance and behavior, meeting our expectations for being in every seminar class. It meets once a week for an hour, so being there every week for that dedicated hour, because that is where we are able to deliver and support your college planning and your college admissions processes, your career exploration processes, to make sure that you've done all of the things that you need to do in order to land at a university where you really would like to be. Students who participate in early college or early admission do remain enrolled at their current high school. So if you're thinking, you know, I'm a Pinellas Park High School student, I'm in the Criminal Justice Academy, but I'm zoned to Countryside High School, what happens to me? Well, if you're presently at Pinellas Park High School, you will continue to remain enrolled at Pinellas Park High School. You will attend all of your classes at the college, but you'll stay enrolled at Pinellas Park High School, which means you'll continue to be able to participate in all of those activities that you presently participate in, whether that's athletics or honor society, and thinking ahead to like your senior activities and graduation. The only thing that changes for a student, well, 2 things really, and one of them I didn't put on this slide. If you're in a district application program right now, you would no longer be considered part of that district application program. So if you are that Pinellas Park student who's in the Criminal Justice Academy and you decide to go to early college, you remain a Pinellas Park High School student, but you are no longer part of the Criminal Justice Academy. And any student who comes to early college or early admission is excluded from consideration for valedictorian and salutatorian, because by virtue of the group of classes that students are taking, it would give them an edge in terms of calculation of GPA. And so that's one of the pieces that's one of the restrictions that are in place for students in early college and early admission. So I promised you some additional course information. We're almost at the end here. Some additional course information. I would say that anyone who is listening to this and they're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to take these AP classes and or these dual enrollment classes and be successful? That's a big leap for me because I've never done that before. If you wanted to take an additional elective that will give you some support for your success in those higher level classes, it would be AVID. AVID is basically an elective course where students learn some of those academic skills that are going to lead to success in college. And that ranges in everything from collaborating with their peers to effective note-taking practices and effective studying practices and effective collaborative studying practices so that they can learn to work with their peers in a productive way to get through their points of confusion so that they come out on the other end with answers to their questions, whether that is because somebody in the group understood from the beginning and is able to share their understanding, or whether that is everybody working through that point of confusion together. So I would say the AVID elective is a rigorous elective that provides support for your other rigorous courses. And I say it's a rigorous elective because there's high expectations for the courses that you're going to take, and there's high expectations for coming to the class prepared to engage in all of that each day. The AVID elective also supports students with their college search and their college applications, and scholarship searches and applications as well. AP capstone courses, the AP research and AP seminar courses that I touched upon earlier when we were looking at that slide that talked about AP and dual enrollment. That's a sequence of 2 courses. Seminar comes first and research comes second. And I will say, in terms of advanced placement courses, those are courses that have higher success rates in general than most AP courses. And it's because the score that a student receives is not solely based on an exam that they sit for in May. So in the AP seminar class, there are 2 performance tasks and there's an end of course assessment. The first performance task is working with a group. The second performance task is working individually. And then the third piece is that end of course assessment. And the performance that a student has on all 3 of those pieces is combined to make up the exam score of 1 through 5. So in AP seminar, it's really teaching students the basics of research and understanding how to look at things through different lenses and how to combine your lens with the lens of somebody else in order to make some judgments about the validity of an idea or the validity of the research that you're reading. In research, you take all of the things that you learned in seminar. So after you learn those pieces in seminar, your first performance task is a group presentation and with individual papers attached to it. And your second performance task is an individual presentation with an individual paper attached to it. And then of course the EOC assessment at the end. So you've learned several skills throughout the year in that seminar class, and you put all of those to work and applying them in AP research the following year in a single year-long project where you develop original research, you write a formal paper, and you defend your findings by delivering a presentation on what you've learned and answering some questions about that. The skills that are developed over these 2 years include critical thinking skills, fundamental argumentation and research skills, and a wide variety of communication skills, from vocal delivery to multimedia pieces and all of those things. These courses were literally created at the request of universities who said, you high schools, you keep sending us all these students who have all of this content knowledge. They took AP US history, they took AP English language, they took AP psychology, they took AP biology, they took AP calculus. They have all of this content knowledge, but they haven't developed the skill set of synthesizing their knowledge from those different areas and then delivering that knowledge to somebody else. And so because colleges and universities felt that the skill piece was lacking for students as they came in, they asked College Board to create these 2 courses as a way to build the skill set so that students are coming not just with the content knowledge, but also the skill set that's needed to be positive and productive in a college environment from the very first day that they get there. And I will tell you that the student feedback that we get when our students finish these classes, graduate from high school and go off to college is incredible. They talk about feeling better prepared than any other person in the room when they enter that, that first research course or that first elective course where they're expected to read some research and develop an opinion and defend their opinion. So I would say if I were a parent and as a former assistant principal, if I were recommending courses to kids, these would be the top 2 courses that I would recommend for any student to be thinking about taking in high school in terms of courses of rigor. There are admissions benefits For college, when you're applying to college, if you've completed your AP Capstone experience, then you will either have an AP Capstone certificate or an AP Capstone diploma. The certificate is what you get if you get a 3 or better in seminar and research. The diploma is what you get if you get a 3 or better in seminar and research and 4 other AP courses. So a total of 6, seminar, research, and 4 others. And those 4 others could be anything that you choose. So think about where your strengths are and where your interests are, and take AP classes in that area if you want to achieve the AP Capstone diploma. Ultimately, doing that, accomplishing that, gives you the ability to distinguish yourself in that college admissions process. So certainly worthy of consideration. And I would say if those are courses that you're thinking about and you have questions about them, seek out the AP Capstone teachers on your high school campus and ask them lots of questions, because there is nobody on your campus better equipped to answer questions about those courses than the people who have taught them themselves. And as mentioned earlier, seek out students that are in those classes and ask them questions, because they'll be honest with you too. So that, in a nutshell, is the information that I wanted to provide to you. You've got my contact information on the screen. That's my email address, town-viguj@pcsb.org, and also the telephone number where I can be reached, 727-588-6466. Feel free to use either of those, and if you have questions, I may end up pointing you back to somebody very specific at your school. I do work very closely with all of the high schools. So if you have a question about who the point of contact would be at your school, or if you have just a general question, I can do my best to either answer you or direct you to the right person at your school in order to get your questions answered sooner rather than later. And I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Figure. That was great information. I learned a lot as well. Yeah, I did not know about the capstone, AP capstone, so that's great. And I know that I'm working with some students who I'll definitely share that with very soon. And yeah, another shout out to AVID classes. I can't stress enough, when I present to AVID classes, I was talking with a lot of AVID classes today during the Great American Teach-In, and it was just such an engaging group, and they had so many questions, and you could see how they all work together as well to support each other. So I definitely second that. I don't see any questions in the chat right now for Mrs. Vigu. I want to give everyone a chance, if you do want to unmute your microphone, if you have any specific questions. I know that was a lot of information, but as Mrs. Vigu said, we are going to share the slides and we'll share the video, so you can go back and review after tonight's recording as well. So is there anyone from the audience who would like to ask a question? You can either ask or type it in the chat. No, I'm not seeing anything pop up, so we will.
You all have my contact information, so by all means, feel free to reach out to me if you think of something after this presentation. Okay?
All right, great. Thank you so much, and thanks again for joining us tonight.
Of course. Have a great night.
Great. Okay, next we're going to have Danica Walker rejoin us. There she is. And just talk to you now that we've gotten all this information. Oh, I do see, let's see, what if you're an IB student? I think I need a little bit more on that question, Orlando. Are you asking about college credit?
My son is a pre-IB student at St. Pete High, and just wanted to know how that would affect like dual enrollment, if he would still remain. Do they offer that for IB students as well if he does dual enrollment?
You know what? And Mrs. Vigu just left the building, so we will have to check with him. I know that they're 2 separate programs, but I don't know if one actually excludes you from the other program. I know IB is there's a select group of courses that that can receive credit for it. So it may be possible that your child would just be eligible for dual enrollment classes that are not part of the IB program. But I would definitely reach out to the guidance counselor or follow up with Mrs. Vigu about that, because I'm not an expert in that area.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't want to ignore, it looks like, let's see, I think it was Denaya. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. You did have a question about scholarships, and I think we're going to talk about that next. So I'm not going to answer that, but we'll get back to that if your question hasn't been answered. So I am now going to pass it on to Danica Walker, who's going to talk to you about tips while you are a sophomore and beyond.
Yes, I will. And before I start to share my screen, I will answer Denaya or Dania's question. And I'm going to share some resources that may be beneficial to you. So one of the things that we always recommend to students is that you check out the Pinellas County School Board's website. They have one or a page that is dedicated specifically to financial aid and scholarship information. I'm typing it in my web browser now so that I can show you what it looks like. So the reason why we like this website is because one is pretty comprehensive. It gets updated on a regular basis. So as you can see, it was recently updated on October 11th. So about a month ago. And then when you look at it, it shows you up front what are the things that have been recently updated. It will tell you the name of the scholarship as well as the amount that it's worth, any grades that are open to the scholarship, and then any specific details and the deadlines. So as we scroll through, a lot of them will be for seniors because a lot of scholarships are always geared towards seniors, but there are a few that will be available to students who are not quite seniors. So this Innovation Education Scholarship, which is for $500, is for students who are in 9th through 12th grade. The way that it works is that they do a monthly drawing on the 20th of each month. So if you wanted to apply for this technically for the month of November, you still have 3 days. And then let's see if there are any more. Here's one for 11th graders, United States Senate Youth Program for $10,000. This one would have passed, but you know now that when you are a junior in high school, that next October, this may be a good time to check out this scholarship. So that's it for this page. Like I said, it doesn't hurt to stay connected to this webpage, see what they have. Another one that I think is pretty cool is raise.me. I won't go into the actual website because I don't have an account, but the reason why it's cool is because you can start looking at this as early as 9th grade, as it says. And so what they do is they work with colleges that they partner with. And so they provide micro scholarships. And so what that means is they may offer you scholarships for as low as maybe $100, $200, $500, $1,000, but it's based on your high school experience. So it could be something as simple as, did you take a dual enrollment class? Did you take an AP class? Were you involved in any sports while you're in high school? Did you volunteer? Did you babysit while you're in high school? And so each university that partners with them has their own unique criteria. But as you go through, you can kind of see what those options are. You can identify the ones that you've already done. And if you're really interested in getting those scholarships, you can also identify ones that you have not done yet, but are still eligible to do. So race.me is pretty cool because it's pretty individualized. It's based on the student as well as the schools. And again, in order to get the money, it has to be a school that is partnered with race.me. So it may not have all the schools that you're interested in, but it never hurts to check it out. And then from my understanding, there are always new schools that are being added. So the more popular it becomes, the more schools that they partner with, and then the more opportunities there are to get scholarships. Another option is the College Board Opportunity Scholarship. This will be available for you starting your junior year. This is pretty cool because as you can see, there are 6 different steps, and each step puts you in the running for a different pot of money. It's also something that we highly recommend and that we really like to promote because as we talked about a lot of these things, when you are applying to college, these are the actual steps that you'll be taking. So Charlene talked about the college types and fits as well as admissions. So at some point, if you haven't started yet, you're going to build your list of schools. You're going to identify your reach schools, your safety schools, your match schools. So in order to be eligible for this scholarship, you'll build that list in a website, and that puts you in the running for $500. Practicing for the SAT. That is something we all know that, will become part of the process. I hope if you have not started yet that you're looking into when you plan to take the SAT and the practice that, you may need to do. So that doing that step puts you in the running for another $500. Exploring scholarships, which is what we're doing right now, puts you in the running for $500. So going back to that college list and then strengthening it, really narrowing down what are the schools that I'm actually going to apply to, puts you in the running for $500. Completing the FAFSA, which you will do your senior year, puts you in the running for $500. And then applying to college will put you in the running for $500. If you complete all 6 steps, it puts you in the running for $40,000. The downside is that it is more of a lottery type scholarship, but the upside is regardless if you get money or not, you still taking the steps necessary to go through the journey to apply for college. So those are the big, well-known ones. Something else I highly recommend, or that we always talk about, is all the colleges that you're going to be looking at, they will have foundations, which means that they will have a organization or a space where money is donated to the school, and that money is used for scholarships. Those scholarships will depend on different criteria that the donor has set up. So it could be a student who is from Pinellas County. It could be a student who wants to go into a specific major. It can be based on gender. It can be based on culture, ethnicity, GPA. So there are a lot of different categories of scholarships that are typically available in foundations. So as you're looking at your schools, also look at what are the foundation scholarships that they offer, because those scholarships are not usually attached to your admissions. What that means is that when you look at a college in their admissions website, they'll usually list some freshman scholarships that are available to you based on the GPA that you'll be bringing into the university. And if you get accepted into the school and you meet those requirements, then those scholarships are pretty much automatically awarded to you through the admissions office. Foundation scholarships are scholarships that you will have to apply for separate of your admissions. So you'd have to go into that website or go to that page, complete the information. It's usually one website or one application, and then from there they would cross-reference your application against the scholarships that they offer, and then if you match any of the criteria, they will award you those specific scholarships. A great example of that, which is available to high school students in Pinellas County, is the Pinellas Education Foundation scholarships. So these scholarships are available to all students in Pinellas County. It is one application, and they have nearly 100 scholarship opportunities available. So right now it's open until January 31st for current seniors. So there is one application, you apply here, and there are, as you can see, a lot of scholarships. So there's scholarships for Pinellas Park Society, Visual Arts Scholarship, Pinellas Promise. I saw something about Osceola, East Lake, Delta Sigma Theta. So this provides you with the opportunity to also get scholarships. And then something I recommend that as you are looking, although all these may not be available to you right now as a sophomore, it does not hurt to start to write down these scholarships, because most scholarships are cyclical, which means that when you are a senior, they will come back around. They usually maintain the same open date and deadline date. The criteria usually doesn't really change. The requirements that they ask you to submit usually doesn't change. So if you know that they exist and you keep track of them, when you are a senior, you'll already have that list of scholarships that you plan to apply to, and all the information that you need will be right in front of your eyes. So those are some of the ones that I recommend. Sandy, Charlene, if you have any others, please feel free to share. And then there's always Bright Futures. I think we all know about Bright Futures, but I can share a little bit more about that if anybody wants. You can add that in the chat if you'd like.
Did hit a lot of them, but I will go ahead and share my long resource of links as well in the chat, as well as have them sent out to you with the link for today's workshop. So those were a lot of great resources, and constantly, again, making sure that you put some time aside to actually go and look at them, because they are updated constantly. But if you look in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and drop a whole bunch of them.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's find out about Bright Futures, please. Sure. So Bright Futures is a scholarship program that is specific for Florida students. And in order to receive the scholarship, so far, you plan to go to a public Florida institution. I could be wrong. Sandy, correct me if private schools also accept Bright Futures. But there are 4 different categories of Bright Futures. They have a really good, my brain, it's been a long day. They have a really good student handbook that goes into all of the specific details about Bright Futures, from the length of the scholarship, information for non-traditional students, if you want to transfer the scholarship between institutions, renewal requirements, award amounts. But for basic information, I'm going to share you this one quick page, if I can find it. Okay, so this is one of the pages from their handbook. Let's see if we can make this bigger. This is in regards to the academic scholarship as well as the medallion scholarship. So it lets you know these are the 16 high school core courses that you need to complete. In order to get Bright Futures as of this year, you need at least a 3.5 GPA for the Florida Academic Scholarship or a 3.0 for the Florida Medallion Scholarship. And then their college entrance exams, you need to have a 29 on the ACT or a 1330 on the SAT. For next year, it'll be a 29 and 1330. And then for Florida Medallion, it's a 25 or 1210. And then you will need to complete 100 hours of service or 75 hours of service. Then let me find you all. Are there any specific questions that you have about? Okay, I'm glad to help. When it comes to volunteer work or volunteer hours, you need to make sure that it is approved by your guidance counselor. So you can't just go out and do 100 hours and then come back and say, hey, this is done. You need to run past them. Where's the place that you want to go, and all that information, and then you have to agree with it, check it off, and then there's paperwork that you can do to ensure that that is documented and that it will go towards your hours. Also, the application for Bright Futures opens student senior year. You have until slightly after they graduate from high school, I think usually in July, to get all the information in, because sometimes the student may take the SAT or ACT and may be very close to Bright Futures numbers, but may want to retake. So they do give you a little bit of time after you graduate from high school, but not too much time to get all that information in. So you don't have to feel like if it's not done by May, it's impossible. But with all of that, I'm going to go into a little bit more information about the PATH program, who we are, what we offer, and then what are some tips for being a high school sophomore right now and how you can prepare for college, in addition to all the great information that we got today. So the mission and vision of PATH, our goal is to provide equitable and attainable and flexible pathways to promote access to higher education for all students in Pinellas County. And then we ultimately want to increase the number of students who are attaining post-secondary education and degrees, whether that's, ideally in Pinellas County, so that we can increase the economic mobility of students, fill skills gaps, and then meet the workforce needs. We do that by offering a wide variety of, I promise my life is usually easier than this. We do this by providing a lot of resources, and we always want you to understand that we are a resource. So we provide college access information regardless of the school that you, if you're a student, or your child, if you're a parent, want to go to. So we're able to talk about FIU, FAU, FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, all those places, because we want to make sure that students are getting to the schools that are the best fit for them, and not just sending them to the school that we want them to go to or the schools that we work with. So some of the ways that we do that is we volunteer at the Pinellas County Schools, College, and Career Centers. There are currently 9 of them. There's Pinellas Park, there is Gibbs, Lakewood, Eastlake, Clearwater. I'm missing a lot of them, but there are 9 high schools. If you are at a school with a College and Career Center, you may very well see one of us there. And the College and Career Center is also a great resource. So if you have any questions and you're at a school that has one, please stop by. In addition to that, we also host workshops very similar to this. So we've been doing them on the grade level. So we've done sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And so our next one will be for freshmen. And then next semester, we'll be going into detail about specific topics such as financial aid and FAFSA. We'll talk about the SAT and ACT in a little bit more detail. We'll talk about college admissions in a little bit more detail, and then we'll have a second presentation for our seniors and our juniors next semester. And then we also are able to have individual conversations. So if you would like to talk a little bit more about what we've discussed today and get more granular about your individual experiences or what will be best for you or your child, we're more than happy to schedule a meeting with you and talk to you about your situation. In addition to all of that, we also help students who want to start at SPC and specifically go to USF St. Pete campus. So we start with them from the time that they apply to SPC. We work with them while they're at SPC. We do individual coaching sessions. We offer workshops. We also offer scholarships for our students, both at SPC and when they transfer to USF St. Pete campus. And then we stay with them until they graduate from USF St. Pete. So here are some tips to consider right now as a high school sophomore. So the first thing that you should do, which has been mentioned a lot at this point, is it's important to meet with your high school guidance counselor. So get to know your guidance counselor as early as possible. If you have not had the time to really introduce yourself and get to know them, this will be a great time to do so because it will allow you to have a better relationship so that you will be more comfortable with discussing post-secondary options and opportunities, as well as give you the chance to plan for any of those rigorous curriculum or courses that Ms. Viggy mentioned a few moments ago. Also, explore and commit to any extracurricular and leadership activities. So if you have not done so in your freshman year, which would be reasonable because of COVID, and you really wanted to take the time to get involved, now is a great time to try out new activities, as well as start to decide if there are any ones that you've already been involved in that you may want to become more deeply involved. So if you did anything last year and you're like, hey, I really enjoyed it, now may be the time to commit a little bit more of your time and energy to the activity, or join the executive board or any type of leadership positions within that activity if you're able to do so. We always say that quality is more important than quantity. So don't feel that you have to get involved in every activity that you see. Don't feel like you have to pad your high school resume with all of the clubs that are available to you. Sometimes it's more important to identify 2 or 3 and then really dedicate your time and donate your energy to those. Take the PSAT if you have not already. I'm not sure when the dates are coming up or if they have already passed, but the PSAT is considered to be a practice for the SAT, and it will allow you to qualify for National Merit Scholarship Program. And then it's also a great resource because as you start to practice for the SAT, you can connect your PSAT to Khan Academy, and it will show you where are the spaces that you're not doing so great at, and will give you resources to help you increase the test scores that you may need for those areas. And then, as Charlene also mentioned, learn more about colleges. So begin to explore the colleges using the information that we discussed with you today. Begin to build out that list. What are your reach schools? What are your match schools? And what are your safety schools? So prepare for the SAT. So like I said, it's a great time to start to think about when are you planning to take your first SAT or your first ACT. Usually we recommend that you do this starting the fall or early spring of your junior year. The reason for that is if you need to retest, it gives you more time versus if you wait until the end of your junior year or the beginning of your senior year. So if you are able to take it sooner rather than later, you can really get your scores back. You can see how you did. You have the time and the space to start to study the areas that you didn't do so great at and then retake as necessary. And then create a resume. So write a brag sheet or a resume of your high school experiences and your accomplishments, and then you can update this throughout your high school experience. Doing this as a sophomore is a really great idea because you have your freshman year under or completed, so you can put in all the information that you garnered from your freshman year, and the midpoint of your sophomore year, so anything that you did this semester. If you wait until your senior year, it can be a little challenging to stop and think about all the things you did in 4 years. And the reason why we recommend a resume or a brag sheet is because as you start to apply for colleges, as you start to apply for scholarships, it really helps you to keep all that information fresh. So any questions that they may have about what you did is right there in front of your face. And then also, if you're asking for any letters of recommendation, you can send that to that person and they can give a fuller view of who you are, because sometimes we only know students in the capacity in which we meet them. So for example, your teacher may be able to speak very highly about how you are in their classroom setting, but may not always know about the extracurricular activities that you're participating in or any awards that you may have gotten. So if you can share that information with them, then they're able to include that as well in their letter of recommendation for you. And then, as I mentioned not too long ago, start keeping track of the scholarship opportunities that you come across. So take note of all of the things related to Pell's Education Foundation, Look into Race.me, College Board Opportunity Scholarships, and any other ones that you may come across, because they are probably going to come back around either your junior year or your senior year. So if you know that they already exist, you're more ahead of the game and are able to plan to apply for them. So keep track of it either in a document, an Excel spreadsheet, if you have a notebook that you use, but use something that you know you'll keep and that you'll update from time to time. And then take the time to talk. So talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your support system about your college and career plans. It's always important that you are involving others in the process. We all have our ideas about what college will look like, and sometimes our families may not have those same ideas or those same feelings. So staying on the same page as early as possible will make it a more seamless transition for both you, your parent, your student if you're a parent, and all those who will be involved in this conversation. And so you've seen us all this evening. I am Danica Walker. This is my contact information if you would like to reach out to me individually. Here's Sandy and her contact information, as well as Charlene and all of her contact information. In addition to our email addresses and our phone numbers, we also have a webpage that you can go to. We are on Facebook and we are on Instagram. So if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you will see that we post pretty regularly advice for high school students. We also post on Thursdays scholarship opportunities. So that's another place we can get more information and keep track of. And if you ever want to have an individual conversation, please don't hesitate to contact any of us. And then the very last thing that we ask is that you take some time to take our survey. Let us know how we did this evening. Let us know what you'd like to see from us moving forward, or if there's any information that you felt that we missed. We take the information that we receive from our surveys very seriously, because we always want to make sure that we're a resource to you all and that we're providing you with relevant and accurate information. So with that being said, do you all have any questions for us?
There are no questions in the chat. There was one earlier, and I think I answered it. It was just, what is the deadline for meeting the Bright Futures requirements for GPA hours and credits? So typically it's the end of your senior year. You need to have turned in those volunteer hours. And again, they have to be approved by your guidance counselor. So before you start volunteering, talk with your guidance counselor, but there's no reason you can't start now. And get them done even before your senior year. GPA will be calculated after your final grades are posted for your senior year. And then right now, Bright Futures is giving you, they're letting you take an SAT or an ACT test through June 30th. So you can take the test through June 30th and then report the scores when they come in. I stress right now, because last year with COVID, there were adjustments that were made throughout the year. So the best thing you can do is really to just stay on the website and see if anything changes.
Okay, well, if there are no questions, we've put a lot of information in the chat. I would highly recommend take some time to look at some of those links. I will also be sending out an email. It will include, as Sandy said, a copy of tonight's recordings, as well as all the links that we provided to you, because we want to make sure that after you leave today, you still have access to that information, as well as any contact information for ourselves and the guest speakers from tonight. So we thank you for joining us. We hope that this has been useful for you all. We look forward to seeing you at future Path events, and I hope you have a great evening. Sandy, you can stop recording.